Welcome to our second panel session of the day, which will be a discussion revolving around the topic growth of customer experience ecosystem in Malaysia, the Malaysian strategy and success. And without further ado, we'd like to call upon our moderator for this session, Dato Munira Lui, founder and CEO of Brand International. Dato Munira, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this digital GPS moving up the value chain day 4 session. And as introduced, the topic it's on growth of customer experience ecosystem in Malaysia, the Malaysian strategy and success. Let me have the honor to introduce to you the awesome speakers and friends who are thought leaders in the customer management as well as the contact center industry. The panelists for the day includes Raymond Devadass, who is the CEO of Daythree Business Services and President of CCAM. Byron Fernandez, EVP, Malaysia, India, and Group CIO of TDCX. Irene Lopez, Director, Customer Management AIA, and Jinder Kaur, Managing Partner, Language Talent Solution. So welcome everyone, and it's great to see all the familiar faces in this panel, and certainly looking forward to a very exciting session in the next 1.5 hours. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start off the session by just a very quick introduction. As I think most of us are aware, the nation is working towards, working together to strengthen our economy through business growth. Technology will essentially still play a fundamental role in keeping business operating and thriving in the future. So this session essentially is going to cover the next step in Malaysia's digital transformation and customer experience, competitive advantage, insights into the contact centers, moving up the value chain, and key success factors in embarking on CX and digital transformation. So as the effects of COVID-19 reshape our economies, organizations will essentially need to strategically re-engage with our customers. So the impact of COVID-19 on customers' behaviors was immediate and widespread across all industries, countries, and demographics. So expectations of our customers and priorities has also shifted. We are seeing more purchases are being done online. So things are moving from offline to online. And customers are expecting brands that they interact with digitally to be able to deliver better, safer, and more seamless interactions at a lower cost. And the fact that we're reducing physical purchases is gravitating towards touchless shopping as well as contactless payments. So with that setting the scene, I would like to open to the panelists to perhaps very quickly introduce themselves and your role in your respective organizations before we begin with the questions and answers. So perhaps we can start off with Byron. Let's with alphabet. Byron is B, right?
Thank you, Munira. Thank you very much. Yeah. I'll give a brief introduction of myself and what I do today. Ms. Byron Fernandez, as you can all see. And what I do is I take care of the operations for TDCX, which is a global BPO. And I take care of operations in 2 countries, in Malaysia as well as India, where we're presently setting up in Hyderabad. Besides this, I also function as the group CIO. So Munira, you can expect a bit of an IT view of what's going on, and don't hesitate if it's the tech sort of response that you're looking for. I'm well poised to give you those answers.
Thanks, Byron. And we have next Jinder.
Hello, Munira. Thank you very much. My name is Jinder. I am actually the managing partner of Language Talent Solution. We are a specialized recruitment firm focusing on hiring linguistic talent across the board, predominantly in the BPO industry, finance shared services, HR shared services, and also IT. I play the role in actually managing day-to-day operation and also very client-centric in managing solution, designing solution to ensure we are able to actually deliver the outcome for a client.
All right. Thanks, Jinder. And we have Irene. Irene.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good to be in this forum. Full name is Irene Lopez, and I'm with AIA Berhad. AIA is no stranger to everybody. We are in the insurance industry. AIA Malaysia, we have approximately about 3,000 employees, out of which 1/3 sits at the forefront as the front support, whether in customer service, correspondence, or whatnot. So this topic is very relevant to AIA, and trying to streamline it, especially when COVID hit, to the 18 countries that we have globally. So very happy to be part of the discussion. Yep.
Thanks, Irene. And we have none other than Raymond.
So perhaps, unlike Irene, we are stranger to many people, I think. So my name is Raymond. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Daythree Business Services. We are essentially a business process management company specializing in the area of CX. And our focus has in the last few years has always been in the area of technology and in particular optimizing CX or customer experience through technology, and that's been really a focus for us in the last few years. And I'm glad to be here this afternoon to be able to share with you some of my thoughts and also my experience in doing so.
Right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Raymond. And I guess what's really important before we go into the specifics around the strategic questions around, how do you position Malaysia, moving forward. Perhaps I can kind of, get some thoughts and ideas from the panelists around how have you managed how did you drive the changes in your organizations, to very quickly adapt to, the landscape that we spoke about the pandemic and how it has caused a lot of disruptions to our operations. So perhaps you can kind of share how you have done it in your respective operations, in terms of the pandemic as well as the changes in the whole customer experience space. Any thoughts from that?
Yeah, I can get the ball rolling, Munira. So
Thanks,
what happened for us was when Tan Sri Muhyiddin made the announcement and we were told that in 48 hours we were not able to work from the office. The first thing I did was call Raymond. So Raymond, does this mean that contact centers are affected as well? Are we essential services? We all went through that same sort of anxiety, right? Trying to figure out what this is going to mean for each of us. And I think most organizations would have gone through this sort of phase where we're figuring out exactly what this means for us, because communication, when done at a national level, and no disrespect meant to the Malaysian government, I think they did a brilliant job. But anything communicated at that level and scale will create this kind of anxiety, will create this kind of people being unsure of what the real impact is to them. And once we started to realize that the impact for us is as much as we want to make it, that's when organizations become empowered, and then they start to think, what are we going to do with this? There is a pandemic, it's global, it's affecting everyone, people we know, names that we're personally involved with, would have been tested positive. We know that this is on a global scale. And so a lot of companies in customer experience, I think, took a very, very proactive stance to move people into working from home. Now, we didn't have much time to prepare for that. So some of the ways we did things might not have been necessarily ideal, especially in the early days of working from home. But with time, I think we've gotten infinitely better at it. We've started to become a little bit more deliberate in our strategy. We have some people working in the office, sure. But the people who are working from home now have adequate technology. Buying webcams was impossible, right? I know all of you in this call would have tried to buy webcams as soon as the announcement was made. You all knew there was no way we were going to get them, right? But all of that initial panic buying and all of those problems have now gone away, and people now have the equipment they need to work from home and to work from home well. And we've got to think way past just the basics like webcams, laptops, desktops, even things like ergonomic chairs, things like I've got two huge gaming monitors at my workstation at home. And finally, after so many years of working in an office, my home workstation is actually nicer than the one in the office. And I think that's true for a lot of us and for a lot of the people who are working in customer experience. So just getting the ball rolling here, Munira, that's been the early days experience. And I'll let someone else take on from here, and then maybe we can circle back and talk a little bit more about the strategy later.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Byron. And anybody else?
Maybe Munira, I'll take on from there.
Sure.
I agree with Byron there. The early days, there was a lot of panic. All right. Everything worked at an accelerated speed, right? AIA as a whole, as a company, faced different challenges because our channels, we had face-to-face channels as well that we had to shut down, right? And so in Malaysia, having about 38 contacts and customer centers face-to-face in different regions, we had to shut down when MCO was announced. Was a big uphill task for us because the volumes then from there were diverted to the contact centers and the email team and whatnot. So we had unprecedented volumes that we had to deal with. And working at an accelerated speed, like what I said, we immediately had plans to go digital in a lot of areas. But because we come under the umbrella of BNM, Bank Negara, a lot of compliance, certain processes had to be authenticated, like signatures and whatnot. And all of a sudden, there was leeway for us from Bank Negara to go digital with that. So we embarked on the journey of non-face-to-face, our agency going in and continuing business during the pandemic on a digital platform, getting application on a digital platform and processing that. So then came that issue of, okay, who's going to process this? Because the branches are closed, right? Nobody's going to take that document and process it. So we had to quickly set up emergency teams on the back end to then do this online digitally from home. Right? So it was a huge transformation. And today, we are in a better place. We are already doing it from home. Like our Sabah branch is still closed, but the Sabah team that works at the branch is at home, and still it's as business as usual. We've gone on chat, we've gone on non-face-to-face transaction monitoring. So I think the pandemic, as much as we want to forget 2020, for all the bad things, but it also had brought us some acceleration and some urgency to move forward with the digital transformation. Yep.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Irene, for the sharing. Yes.
Add on to that, Munira, very quickly. It's very interesting that as I engaged during this period with all the contact center leaders and our members, from various industries, and the silver lining is no doubt, as Byron said earlier, there was a lot of confusion in the early days, right? I think all of us, including myself, running an operations, I think we had our BCPs in place back in as early as January. We knew that something of this nature would appear. But I think right at the end of the day, when it really happens, that's when you really panic, right? Because that's when you got to move things. It's nice on paper, it's nice on a PowerPoint slide, but when you really need to execute, it's a different ball game altogether, because that's where you realize all the tweaks that needs to be done to your previous PowerPoint slides and plans. But I think the industry, as I speak to the people in the industry, we moved very well. Within the first 48 hours, we were able to transition from office to a work from home environment. With a lot of glitches, but I think within 48 hours, a big percentage of 80% of our operations were already running live. If at all there was any disruption. And just to add on to that, the beauty of this is that work from home is not something new. It's, the technology has been there for the last 10 years. We were able to do it, but we've always put this curtain in front of us saying that it cannot be done for this industry, because there are a lot of regulatory issues, and there are a lot of other physical hindrances. But I think the beauty of this today is that that and Irene just mentioned this earlier. We've transcended. We've said, look, we force ourselves to look in from a new dimension and say, no, these are things that need to be done and need to be done now. And as I say, necessity is the mother of all inventions. Yeah, I think this is one of the best things that came out of this. That that really moved, and we've transcended to a different level as an industry. And I was reading this article, just a couple of days ago. We used to have about 360 million people online. Today, post-pandemic, there are about 400 million people online in Southeast Asia. I'm talking about Southeast Asia alone. And one out of every three persons who is using a digital service today is a new user. So it's very interesting. And 90% of these users today say that they will not revert to the old model. It's a blessing, because today now we've got the young and the not so young also embracing technology. The entire culture has shifted, and it now forces organizations to look at things differently, because we've all gone online.
Right. Thanks, Raymond. And Jinder, anything to add from the sharing?
Yeah, sure. Interestingly for us, like everyone mentioned, the pandemic was obviously something that we knew was coming, but in terms of preparation, some of us lack. In terms of recruitment, I guess for us, we were actually supporting customer BCP's plan. I think that was the objective. Once we understand their plan, we were able to actually execute any action or any recruitment activity according to their desirable BCP plan. I think one thing that we generally did very well is to actually work with clients who needed resilient talent, multilingual talent that was flexible to actually work from their home country before moving back to Malaysia post-pandemic.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jinder. Now we hear it, right? We are beginning to see that, how the organizations that has just shared their stories from a crisis and a chaotic situations into a normalization, into a new normal. And obviously some of you are now even talking about what's the next step, right? The future of it. And we are beginning to see that there are some key traits that we saw in what has been shared. It's number one, we saw how agile the people were, in pivoting their business, right? From, the normal operations to that of work from home, supported by the IT enabled technology aspect of it. We're also seeing everything has accelerated by the using digital transformation. Used to be smart strategy, but now it becomes a survival strategy. And truly, we are also seeing how we are capable of actually becoming resilient in addressing and combating the adversities that is really right in front of us. So kudos and thank you very much for the great sharing, and to see that all of us are essentially coping well in as far as this adversity is concerned. So I kind of like to bring forth to the next question is, what's the next step for Malaysia, therefore? I mean, we're going to look at now the next step in Malaysia's digital transformation and customer experience. What are your thoughts around that area? Perhaps we can start with Raymond, yeah? Coming from the CCM's perspective.
I was wondering whether we were going to go alphabetical order again. I think what's most apparent, and at the National Contact Center conference last year, I spoke about mega trends. I spoke about things that were happening in the contact center industry, and one of the first things that I spoke about was the need for cloud-based infrastructure. But when I said that I never realized how dependent we were going to be on cloud-based infrastructure. I think it was a point in time when we were still talking about prem, off-prem or on-prem or cloud, and I think this pandemic, number one, has taught us very clearly that the importance of sort of moving things onto the cloud. And I think even the industries and the regulators are beginning to look at this differently now, because all those restrictions before, I know we are beginning to get into a conversation on how to make this work. It's no longer about should we or should we not, but it has to happen. How do we make it happen? So I think, two things that I mentioned here about the mega trends. One was this, the need for of cloud infrastructure. I think the other thing also is, as we go into this new zone, or we call it the new norm now, security becomes so important now, right?
Yep.
Because everything
Yep.
is happening online. So we're talking about voice biometrics, and we're talking about a lot of other forms of verification. Perhaps Byron could add on to that, as a tech person. But this becomes so important. Knowing your customer that you're dealing with online, your KYCs become so important, and then verifying the authenticity of these customers, and security becomes a really important component. I spoke about 6, 7 things, but I think I just want to highlight 2 things in this discussion. One is the need to pivot towards a cloud infrastructure, and 2 is the attention that we need to put now on security becomes ever more important.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I heard my name called, so I can't resist.
Yeah.
Thank you, Raymond. So I'll first of all take it from a tech perspective. Yes, it is true. There are an incredible area of tools that are now being created, that are being used by people to ensure that working from home remains safe. Real life stories, right? Systems can detect when they're being used, and when they're idle for a time, they know that the user is not there, and they can lock old feature, right? Well, today you might get someone who tapes a pencil to the control key, completely bypassing that. So the reality is, there is a need for some oversight when working from home occurs. And there are incredible tools that have been created now that can even track your eyes and whether you're looking at the screen or not, that can track whether you're within the frame, that can identify common objects in context. Microsoft's Coco framework is really, really impressive, by the way. So there is this incredible area of IT tools, not to mention things like VPN, two-factor authentication, using hardware systems to authenticate people as well. That whole KYC, Raymond, it now extends even to our own people, right? Even to making sure that the guy logging into our networks is actually one of our employees. So from an IT perspective, it's become infinitely more important to tighten up networks. Things that we could take for granted, like, the office network is only accessed from within the office. That's the single biggest paradigm shift. The office network is now being accessed from outside the office by a great many people. And so for CIOs and CTOs out there, this is the thing that we're thinking about, how to keep things safe, how to keep things secure. Now, at a national level, though, Munira, I couldn't help but think about what you were saying about what's next for Malaysia. Specifically for our customer experience industry, here's something really, really interesting that I'm seeing. Some of my clients are saying, so Byron, could you set up a backup center for our English language operations in the Philippines? Could you send up a backup center for our operations in India? Could you set up a backup center for our operations in Tokyo? Now, I chose those 3 cities, not arbitrarily, but for a specific reason, because it brings to light some of Malaysia's advantages over some of our traditional CX competitor countries like the Philippines. The time is now for us to realize the superiority of our own infrastructure. We do have incredible connectivity in the home. Look at all of you joining this call from home, right? Everything is going smoothly. You're on fiber internet, low latency connections. You've got all of that good stuff going. We take that for granted, but not all the countries that run large CX projects actually have this infrastructure. And what I've realized now is Malaysia as a country is now being asked, hey, could you be a backup? to these larger operations we have in these other countries. People are starting to think for countries that are not so stable geographically, like Japan. Is there a case to have contingency teams here in Malaysia to serve Japan domestically? So I think for Malaysia as a country, yes, we have a clear and present national agenda to get sharper at working from home, to develop more tools that will make us better at working from home, but also to exploit our superior infrastructure and to grab some new business from some of these other countries. So that's kind of in two dimensions my thoughts on that question.
Thanks, Byron. And Irene, how would that impact your operations? I think you have a global network in terms of CX operations are concerned, and how do you see your operations ready to kind of take on more jobs and more roles from the other parts of the world?
Correct. So we are a little bit different because we are already we have our structure, we have our global presence, and AIA as a whole, where IT is concerned, they're quite tight, right? They've ring-fenced it quite well. So what has happened is during the pandemic, we realized that we could leverage going digital. We could leverage with a likes of a Singapore and Indonesia, where we have presence, and push work the other side instead of struggling, right? Because I give you a clear example. Singapore doesn't have branches. So when our branches closed down here, we then pushed some of the works there to them to help us. And all this done digitally, which without the pandemic, we wouldn't have even thought of leveraging each other. That opened up a new, I would say, a new culture of working for us, because now I'm working with a party from a different country, and they're doing the same work, the same scope. It's just that the work is sent somewhere else, right? So what I saw coming out of this, and I think the next step is, because we did it as a force, right? It's a survival strategy. We did that. What we realized was that the business leaders were not ready for the transformation. We had, that was never in the agenda, right? So then we now step back and say, okay, let's articulate a strategy now. All right, pandemic, no pandemic, this is the way forward. And how do we leverage globally to make this work, right? So that requires a paradigm shift in culture of how the business runs, right? Because we were always working silo, and now we have to open up and work with these other countries and sharing our work. So I think we are in a better place from where we started, but a lot of work still need to be done on that. Yep.
All right. Okay. Jinder, anything to share from your experience as well?
Sure. I know I will definitely echo Byron. Obviously Malaysia has been ranked number 26 out of 63 last year for digital competitiveness. Having said that, being from the recruitment end, we do see a lot of movement from different countries, predominantly from Philippines, where there is a need now to actually harbor the talent in Malaysia. So I've noticed that movement happening for the last couple of months, and it's really interesting that with the advanced technology that we have, being ranked competitiveness, we see a slight movement right now changing to Malaysia. So that's interesting for us, and also interesting to see how we will be able to then use the current technology with the local practices to emulate the outcome that we obviously desire to have.
Right. Thanks, Jinder. So I'm kind of hearing two perspective in terms of looking at Malaysia's digital transformation. I think the first part that we're hearing, it's that the next step for Malaysia primarily, it's really to kind of have a ready IT infrastructure to be able to support us to scale, right? I think Raymond was talking about big cloud-based. We need to instill more data privacy and security in all the customer interactions, and moving into more monitoring tools to assist us to actually facilitate operations to be done at the workplace. And I kind of like what Byron has talked about, is that Malaysia has proven itself to be resilient in this pandemic, for the very fact is that we had ready infrastructure, we had the ready network to very quickly pivot our business into a work from home environment. So and we are hearing opportunities are there. We need to be able to position Malaysia as potentially an alternative location, preferred location for new businesses, and thus creating more jobs for Malaysians. It requires, obviously, at the end, some paradigm shift, right, to kind of move the organizations as well as the nation aspect of it. So this will lead us to looking at what you see is Malaysia's competitive advantage. I mean, we spoke a little bit about this, but looking at how do we therefore go out and actually position Malaysia as now a preferred alternative location for global businesses, services sector. And what do we Malaysians, Malaysia as a nation needs to do to kind of stay relevant in the customer management space specifically?
Maybe I'll attempt to answer that, Munira, first.
Yeah.
No, I think to put things into perspective, the reality is this: we are a nation of 30 million people, of which about 50% of them, sort of contribute to the economy. So you're looking at about 15 million people, and from CCAM's point of view, we feel there are about close to 500,000 people in Malaysia who are working directly involved in in serving customers at the front line. So we are not scalable. Byron mentioned some of the other countries that we often find ourselves competing with, and and this is sort of gives us this push and the need for a digital transformation, or some call it digital GBS, because we can't compete on the headcount. What we need to be focusing on is being able to do more with less. And I think to answer your question about competitive edge, in the past, it has always been about labor arbitrage, and that's how this business started 20 years ago. That's how the industry was created 20 years ago, because we were looked at as, okay, semi-skilled, but the issue was cost. Labor arbitrage was the big issue, but we used that to our benefit. Today, we have built a huge group of teams working in GBS industry. Our good friend Mr. Hugh from MDEC mentioned in the papers a couple of days ago that we have about 570 odd countries contributing to 20 billion worth of investment last year alone in this space. So we've done well, from being just purely focused on labor arbitrage and sort of then transcending to becoming a multilingual hub. But things have changed today, and I think some of the things that COVID has shown us is that, number one, as Byron mentioned earlier, we have a solid infrastructure. 85% internet and fiber penetration rate into urban and suburban areas. We have transitioned from office to work from home rather easily. And that is why, these countries and people operating in these countries are beginning to look at Malaysia, and we're seeing a lot of these requests coming into the association as well about, hey, can we sort of have Malaysia as a backup hub?
Yep.
So, the fact that we have this infrastructure, the fact that we have this, we have the adequate resources, and I think over a period of 20 years now, from what was semi-skilled labor, we have good quality technical labor as well. So we have transcended from even from the skills of our people, the technical skills of people have also increased, and that's perhaps the hard side. But what I want to highlight to you is also that why we have done well in being able to transition from work from office to work from home and back forth and coming back again is the resilience of our workforce. I think we often forget that. It's not easy to work from home. There are a lot of other pressures that come along with that. And the ability of our people to quickly move into a new environment and sort of get our act together in a very short space of time shows the kind of resilience that we have in the workforce. So today, that is our advantage. We have that infrastructure. We don't have the scale, but we have people who are competent. And number three, we have people who are resilient and flexible to be able to move with the changes and rapid changes in times. And I feel, for these three reasons, I feel that we are providing this competitive edge, and organizations operating in other countries are seriously looking at Malaysia, if not as their primary hub, as their secondary hub.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Okay. Any other thoughts on this? Yes, Byron, I see you have unmuted.
You were expecting me to say something, weren't you, Munira? I totally agree with Raymond. From a workforce perspective, yes, Malaysian people are very resilient. Now, I'm not a parent myself, so I can't appreciate this, but a lot of my peers, a lot of the people around me had to transition into working from home while their kids had to stay home with them. And people very, very quickly started to find room in their houses, create that space where they'd be able to work. And that brings to bear another conversation. Malaysian people tend to have homes that are slightly larger, that are a little bit more accommodating of the kind of space requirements. Compartmentalizing their children, for example, is something that we're also slightly better at, I like to think, than a lot of countries. Yeah. Besides that, and the resilience and the agility that was mentioned by Raymond, there's another thing that Malaysian people are good at. We're disciplined. I say that not tongue-in-cheek, I mean it. I mean, generally, look at us. I mean, if I ask any of you in this room who are working from home now, whether you're working more hours at home or less hours, give me a straight answer. It's more hours, right?
No.
Yeah.
More hours, yeah.
Everyone's doing more hours. So the big fear we had that people would go home and then they'd just be sleeping and not working, it played out in a diametrically opposed direction. I mean, now people are not sleeping, they're just working. Right. One of the skills that I'm trying to teach people in the organization I work for now is disconnecting. I have people trying to get me to take meetings at 10 p.m. and they're not in the US or in Europe. They're my own people here in KL. And I'm like, guys, why are we doing this? Schedule it in the morning like normal human beings, like we were doing before the pandemic, right? So I think that at a people level, we also have an advantage in terms of discipline. I think that we're, as a workforce, we're resilient, we're agile, and we're disciplined. And that's also why working from home have been good for us, besides, of course, some of the logistics items that I mentioned earlier. So those are my thoughts. And from a strengths perspective, as is rightly pointed out, I mean, we're never going to scale like Philippines or India. We don't have a population. But as a secondary backup site, in case things go wrong there, that we can do. And that's what people are asking us to do these days. And let's also not forget, from an attractiveness point of view, KL is still one of the most attractive cities to live in Asia. And our core strength of being able to onboard talent from anywhere in Asia, Japan, Korea, Philippines, to name a few, right? It's still something that we can do. We haven't lost that advantage. It's still a nice place to live. It's still a desirable city to be in. So I think if I were to sum up all of our advantages, I would say those are the main ones.
All right. Right. Thanks, Byron. Anything to add, Jinder and Irene?
Sure, Munira. For me, I believe that the national competitiveness is actually really depending on the industry capability to innovate and actually upgrade. As we are unable to compete with the size in terms of talent, if we continue to upgrade, introduce new technology, innovate product, we would be able to compete par with par in terms of delivering the outcome that is quite desirable.
Okay. Irene, any thoughts? Or?
Well, I echo what everyone else said, 100% same thoughts on those. just to add to that is the adaptability of Malaysians.
Yeah.
More than 90% of COVID tracing was done because people were using the apps, right? Now your local machi, dato, whatever, has been they started using digital, and they started using smartphones. They started adapting to it, and I'm so proud that Malaysia, as a country, whether it's lay people in the outside that you see or your employees, have adapted to it without resistance. And I think that adaptability is also a bigger win that probably is not highlighted anywhere, but that goes to say Malaysia, what is the competitive edge for Malaysia? I think Malaysians are very adaptable in that situation.
Yeah.
So that's to sum what I have to say.
Yeah. Well, it is great to hear the thoughts that positive. That there's a truly some real advantages that we really see as Malaysia as a nation, right? But we are also seeing that there are a lot of pockets of initiatives and activities that we are doing to try to promote Malaysia as the alternative site, right? For GBS and all that. I'm sure Raymond and Byron are doing this in its own. So I still see that the efforts are essentially very fragmented at this point. So if I were to ask, what are your thoughts around what could Malaysia as a country, what do we need to do differently, or what do we need to do to get us into the map? What are your wish lists?
Okay, I don't know whether we're going on merry-go-round, but anyway,
Yeah.
Kill the silence. I think if you look at the journey that we have gone through for the last 20 years, and people like Byron and yourself, Munira, you guys have been in, not trying to insinuate you're older, but but you're senior guys in the industry, and you would realize the days that we went through from running a traditional contact center. My first job after Form 5 in the 3 months gap was to go and do telemarketing for a short while. It was landlines. It was picking up a phone book, yellow pages, and calling people out. It was cold calls. Of course, you can't do that with PDPA now. But it has moved from where it was then, and to a point recently we've been talking about omni-channel, and that has become the focus of our conversation. But I think, and what I'm glad is from talking to a lot of the contact center leaders, that we are beginning to move away from just the omni-channel, and and my wish list is for the entire industry to embrace beyond omni-channel, to becoming, or beyond a contact center, but becoming an intelligent solution center. And what that really means is embracing the new technologies that's available. How do we incorporate AI into our work processes and into our customer journey? How do we incorporate the use of big data and also dark data in some of our processes? And I think we've gone to so many webinars today talking about digital transformation and stuff like that. It's really about embracing that, not embracing technology, but embracing some of these technologies available to improve CX. And really, while I say this as a wish list, I'm also glad to say that a lot of companies in Malaysia have already taken the first few steps. They're already ahead of some of them, ahead of the curve. So this is good. So while it's a wish list for some of the less mature organizations, but by and large, I'm seeing that there's tremendous interest. There's a lot of discussions going on in this area, and we are already moving towards what we call a digital GBS or a digital contact center, and that is going to set us apart, because we can't compete on scale, but we can compete on technical ability and take technical capabilities. And for me, that is that wish list for the entire industry to move to this new level of what we call a digital contact center or digital GBS.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, Raymond. that the whole solution center is completely necessary at this state, rather than thinking of CX as, you know, a separate, disparate sort of processes that somehow or other join up somewhere. My take on this is there's a lot that can be done to unite some of these different functions. Now, we all know that in those days we did customer journey mapping, we did personas, we did all of this good stuff, right? When we started to look at CX, and we started to think in the dimension of being a customer ourselves and designing customer experience programs around the customer. I don't think that should ever change. We should continue to keep the customer at the forefront of what we're doing in terms of the service offerings we have. But to Raymond's point, we should be embracing a lot more things like robotic process automation, things that we're using people to do now that we really don't need people to do, things that a machine can take over doing. Using artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I love that you said dark data just now, Raymond. That one really, really hit a nerve for me, because it's true. We're gathering mountains of information, right, about people every day, and most organizations are doing nothing with it. Because when we think about assigning human resources to doing some of that analytics and deriving some of those insights that can be had from our dark data, we think, but we won't have enough people because there's so much of it. But now that with the advent of machine learning, with the advent of artificial intelligence, I think that there is a lot we can do with all this dark data. And it's really important that today's modern CX players start to realize that the battle is going to be won and fought over data and analytics. And I think that's the most important future skill for all of us as CX practitioners, simply because knowing your customer has always been important. It's been number one priority for us as CX practitioners. It hasn't changed. And that analytics will help us with knowing these customers. So you're absolutely right, Raymond, that as a wish list, I would love to see a lot more people who are involved in AI, ML, who are conversant in all of these new technologies, that would be talking to me about, big data, ELT versus ETL, sunsetting data warehouses, and using all of the incredible array of analytics tools that are available today. I mean, look at Google Data Studio. You don't have to be a genius, but you can derive so much out of that one simple platform. But how many of us in Malaysia are really, really making that an important part of our agenda? Not many enough. That's my view. Just not many enough. Back to you, Munira.
Thanks, Byron, for setting the stage, and Raymond for setting the stage to kind of looked at further insights into how do you kind of see the role of contact centers moving up the value chain. All right, we spoke about moving into a more AI-enabled platforms so that you can actually offer intelligent CX services to your clients, not just locally but globally as well. Perhaps we can hear from Irene. How your company AIA has actually transformed its role from just a contact center operations into moving up the high value chain. If you have any to share with us.
Sure. I'll touch on one that we are embarking on, and it has been showing us such great success, is a lot of self-serve kind of solutions, right? Not necessarily robotic capabilities, but self-serve. So we put the information there, you go and retrieve it yourself, right? Of course, with all the measures in place for privacy and whatnot. And this has been a big, I think, a big success because we have our business partners, right? We don't sell direct, we sell through our agents. And the agency needs a lot of information before they can close a sale, right? And they are everywhere. In the country, you name it. Some places where the structures are okay, some are not. So all these self-serve facilities are built such that it's also mobile friendly. So they are on the move and they get the information there and then. So self-serve has become a key in digitalization, a forefront key in digitalization for AI business as a whole, that then frees my so-called labor-intensive contact centers to do other stuff to value add to the business. So it's a chain reaction, right? So you free up some space here, and then you have other stuff that you can do which you've never done before. One of the things that Byron brought up is data analytics. We collect tremendous amount of data. So this is the time now we go into those data and see what can we do, and using analytics and study and having workshops and saying, hey, look, we can do this now that we have this information. So I think that's just a point I wanted to bring up. Self-serve options is becoming now a popular thing in AIA.
All right. Any other trends that you're probably seeing from any other panelists in terms of how the contact center is moving up the value chain? Any other trends that you're seeing? I mean, Irene has shared about the self-serve. We are also seeing that the contact centers has moved into more AI-enabled technology to help move up the value chain in terms of how they service and not seen as a very transactional contact center operator. So any other thoughts and insights in terms of what can be done here?
I sort of want to put Jinder on the spot here. Jinder, are you seeing any changes in the hiring profiles, in the recruitment strategy? I'm seeing that there's this entire change and shift in the industry from a service provider point of view, right? But are you seeing the recruitment profiles changing?
Yep. Sure. So, coming from the standpoint of view of talent, what I've been hearing or echoing is that, that rescaling and actually upscaling is something that we continuously talk about. If you actually look at the Future Job Report, it indicates by 2022, at least 54% of the employee need to be rescaled. That include all level of employee as well. And within the customer experience space, we're looking at actually creating talent that is now customer super agent or superheroes, where instead of just taking basic call, they have emotional intelligence, they have problem solving skill, and the entire interview process changes the entire spectrum of the talent that we intend to build. So instead of just looking through resumes, working experience, communication capability, now we're focusing on things like their attitude, their willingness to go the extra mile, their tendency to be trained, adaptability, teamwork, problem solving, collaboration. So you see a huge change. As we all understand, with the bots coming as part of the integration, the bots will probably take the basic questions. Right. And when it comes to a little bit more complicated question, we probably need to upscale and rescale the employee in the contact center environment just to make sure that not only they are able to actually build relationship, they are able to maintain the brand. And if customer experience is priority, as we all echo, the only way is to ensure that customer is happy. And, there's only so much a bot can do. Rest alone, that's when the agent need to upskill and reskill themselves to ensure they're able to actually handle deeper, tougher, challenging question, just to make sure that the objective of keeping a customer happy remains the same. So you do see a shift now in terms of hiring pattern, no longer traditional, I want 2 years experience, I want good communication skill. We're looking a lot more in terms of attitude, personality, adaptability, in that scale in terms of hiring new talent. And, having said that also, you also see the benchmark of salary moving higher in the value chain in comparison to how we used to hire a traditional contact center employee. Now, because we want more from an employee, instead of just expecting the basic fundamental, we want someone who, instead of running to the hiring manager or team leader on every concern, they should be able to do problem solving. They are innovative enough to come up with a solution. When the expectations changes, we also see the value change in terms of salary moving up, which probably it's for the better, because we obviously with the entire changes, we will actually see a better customer service experience.
Right. Thanks, Jinder, for for that sharing, right, from a talent perspective. Just a reminder to all the listeners, if you have any questions, please type into the chat just below the screen, and we will ensure that those questions is essentially going to be answered by any of the panelists. So with that, let me therefore come back to what are your thoughts around the critical success factors that we need to consider for organizations who kind of want to embark on this, the mega plans that we spoke about, going into CX, going into digital transformation, and making it more IT enabled and all that. So perhaps you can just walk us through what are the critical success factors for organizations who wants to embark on this journey. I know it's not like just plucking a technology and things is going to overnight things is going to work, right? So I think from your experience, I'm sure we can certainly learn a lot. The listeners can learn a lot from you guys. So any sharing?
Yeah, I can get the ball rolling, Munira,
sure.
No problem.
Yeah.
So I think it starts with taking stock. A lot of companies don't even know what they have. Do you really know how much data your company has on its customers? Do you really know how much data you have on interaction types and volumes and everything that you have? You'd be surprised. Some of the biggest and best brands themselves have yet to figure out exactly what they have. But I think that the journey starts with taking stock. Knowing what you have will then give you a view of what you don't have, and will then be able to help guide you as you go along the journey to sort of see which are the areas that you need to invest in. I, for example, had no clue what was happening internally until I got the right sort of data science expertise in the organization, and we took a step back and we looked at everything we've got, where it is, how the data flows within the organization, and then only then you get an idea of, oh yeah, we could potentially do this, that, the other, but you're never going to even start thinking correctly until you've taken that first step, which is take stock. Understand what you have first. And I think that's the first step towards this journey. And I'm going to stop right there because I know Raymond's going to have something to say about what to do next. So I'm only going to start with take stock, and over to you, Raymond. Go for it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm going to perhaps touch a little bit on, I wrote an article a couple of months ago about digital culture. So, I just want to talk a little bit about this culture, just to give an analogy. Sometimes today you go to a lot of websites and, you're pretty impressed when you see a chatbot, and a lot of CEOs go to webinar and conferences and, they hear that their competitors have created a chatbot, and they come back and they say, okay, let's install a chatbot, and everybody goes running, setting up a chatbot. And I had this particular experience, and I went into this website. When I asked a question of the bot, the answer was, please email your queries to an email address. So now, does that serve a purpose? So I like to think that a lot of us are caught up with this whole process of digitalization now. There is this digitization where you sort of take your analog data and make it digital, and then you digitize it, and then it becomes digital. But today we are talking about transformation, digital transformation. And the word transformation seems to suggest that it must be a change that comes from within. And that's what transformation is all about. It's not about picking technology. It's not picking on tools available and deploying it into your organization. The word transformation recalls us to change the way we work. It requires staff to think differently. It requires staff to think about, how do I increase productivity? How do I improve customer experience with some of these tools available? And that culture needs to start from the top all the way down, because you need to infuse this culture to every single person, every single agent, every single executive in your organization, and empower them to make these changes. So, we often talk about corporate culture, but we forget about digital culture. Yeah, and today that has become so important, the need to drive digital culture across your organization. And for me, that is true transformation. That is true digital transformation. It's not picking technology tools. It has to come from within, and you know, and that starts from the very top. If you are not, I give you an example. In my organization, uh, even your so-called timesheets are digitized. So now what that means is that your employees get a taste of using digital tools. If you just say that you want to do it for your clients and you don't do it for yourself, there's not going to be any real transition. So it has to come from the top. It has to come from within, and that's where I feel that there's going to be the big difference and the game changes, so to speak.
Right. Thanks, Raymond. And Irene, what about from your perspective in your organization?
I agree with Byron. First is to take stock, right? See what you have. Go back to basics. Where are you at now? What is the information you have about your business, your customers? Who are your audience? And then from there, figure out what you don't have and how do you get it? What do you still need? And that's where transformation play a big picture. Because if you're using these tools or people or whatever method you're using for this transformation journey, what do you need? Why are you? I know it's not it's something that you just plug and play. You just don't get a chat tool and do it for the sake of doing it. Why are you chatting? What are you trying to achieve here, right? So I think looking at agree with Raymond, a digital culture, but strategically coming from the top. What is it that we need to do first? So the success, I think, starts with looking at your business right now, looking at the data you have, analyzing the data, see if you have enough to move forward. Because you just can't move forward and expect things to change, and that's a big no. That's a big danger, right? So the idea is to keep it simple, attractive, fast, social friendly. So if you're looking at all these elements, where do you start? Do you have it right now? So many people they just want to be the first to do it. So they just jump on the bandwagon because, okay, it's supposed to go digital. Everybody's doing digital. I want to be part of it. But at the end of the day, we don't know why we're doing it or what's going to be the outcome of this, right? So I would say go back to your drawing board, go back to basic. What do you have right now? Take stock, look at your data, look at what you don't have, and then move from there.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Irene. Well, I'm going to just point these questions to Jinder. I mean, from a talent perspective, from an employee engagement perspective, right? I think riding on what Raymond has mentioned, it's really about it's a cultural transformation that we are talking about, and that requires getting the whole workforce being truly engaged, to take the company to the next level. What are your thoughts from a talent management perspective?
Thank you, Munira. From the talent management point of view, echoing what everyone has said, anyone who's embarking on the whole idea of digital transformation, I think for me, for a start, you need to really understand that the IT department is not a single department. It cannot work silo. Once you understand that, when everyone is actually using the ability of an IT department, you probably will be able to get the more data. In terms of talent pool, I think the biggest challenge that I see right now is we have a lot of sites or a lot of internal database where we have resume deposited, we have referral resume, but I think the lack of the usage of the database has constantly been a challenge. Many find this a bit more tedious using the database because lack of digitalization. So if you know the database that you have, you understand the entire movement of right from advertising to hiring to moving to different stages, the internal database probably be more proactive. If I hear a lot of candidates issue, most of the time, the significant issue I hear is I applied directly, but no one came back to me. No one ever decides to write back to me. No one even decides to respond to my email when I apply directly with the portal. So, I guess if employees are able to actually look at the internal database, and this is a huge responsibility, not only for the HR department, but it's also a collaboration within the entire organization to understand that in order to remain significant, in order to remain resilient, talent is going to be a priority. And if you're able to utilize your internal talent within referral program, within someone applying directly to you, probably that will give you the edge to stand out because, like I say, rescaling, upscaling, rehiring can actually cause a lot of disruption. If you can manage your internal database effectively, you probably will actually have the edge in terms of presenting the best talent in terms of the best CS experience.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I would like to put now Byron on the spot, right? I mean, one of the key myths, right, in CX and digital transformation has always been technology is the superhero, right? So, so a recent survey, found that the lack of understanding of technologies that's available to support digital transformation projects, it's the main cause for a lot of failures in a lot of organizations. So, I mean, as a CIO, how do you reconcile this, right, with digital transformation if it isn't about technology?
The short answer, Munira, is with much difficulty. So basically, yeah. It's true. A lot of companies, a lot of people, even a lot of my peers in the CIO, CTO space, awareness of some of the tools that are available out there is pretty low. Not many people do have a full understanding of the technology that's out there. And the simple reason for this, Munira, is nothing has changed. Technology continues to evolve at light speed. Someone will develop a tool today or a platform today that's novel and different, and that can offer up help to the CX experience in so many new ways. And the likelihood that we'll all know about it is quite low. And by the time we do, probably the few who've figured it out first and implemented it first would have started to reap the benefits of these new tech in many, many different ways. I remember Raymond presented once this RPA initiative he had done. And I remember looking at it and thinking that it was really brilliant because it took away the need to have this large group of people doing what was essentially work that doesn't add value. But this was several years back, right? And he was talking about, I can't remember, Raymond, you can refresh my memory, whether it was Blue Prism or UiPath, one of the platforms that he was using back then. And to a lot of people in the room, they hadn't heard of it. So I guess the first task is for all of us as players in this digital space is to keep ourselves educated, be involved, be online, be in those platforms, those websites, those subscriptions that actually give you that value. There are several events organized by many, many different event organizing companies that bring together CIOs, CTOs, and for people like us who are supposed to guide people through this digital journey, make the time to be at those events. It makes a world of difference. And so awareness is still the number one problem. And I think a lot of people, just like, Jinder will be familiar with this, we miscast people for role types, right? Believe me, in the IT world, we often miscast technology to do sort of the wrong, not the best technology for the thing that we want to do. And we've seen this so many times, failed projects delivered behind time, projects delivered at cost overruns that make them unviable. Unfortunately, it continues to happen. And the only way we can break this cycle is by educating ourselves and really, really understanding what's out there and which are the best tools for that specific job.
All right. And anything to add for Raymond, from your perspective, since you kind of, you're in the kind of, forefront in as far as the, putting technology into your whole delivery services?
Yeah, so as you know, I'm not a techie, right? I'm an accountant by profession. What do I know about?
Yeah, yeah.
But the reality is this: the approach that I've always taken is that you know a digital culture values CX above all. So the
Mm,
focus should be on customer experience. The technology just enables the end goal, which is to improve customer experience. So if you take that approach, then I think you won't be drawn or attracted to every single new technology that's available, that's out there. Doesn't matter if your competitors are using it. Question is,
yeah,
does it work for you? Does it
yeah.
improve your customer, the experience of the customers that you are serving? I think that is
Right,
that should be the mindset that's taken. But by
right.
having said that, with the rapid changes in technology, today you cannot just uh, get the IT department to just be involved in technology. We usually have a disparate digital team, a digital transformation team in the organization, right? And therefore they think of all these ideas and then they implement it. But the way I have sort of changed it a little bit in my organization, that there is a small digital team in every single line of business that we run,
Mm,
right? Therefore, now you're infusing into their daily work life that there needs to be some thinking or some discussion going on about wanting to change things, and changing could happen via technology or even not technology. So we talk about changing processes. But what we put in our minds at the forefront is, can we change it from a technology standpoint? Can we
right.
make things easier? And Byron said that earlier. We tried that several years ago with RPA, and did that successfully, and soon realized that these are things that agents don't need to do or executives did not do. Uh, so for me, the end goal is, again, it's CX, right? CX should be the focus. Everything else is just supporting that sort of global agenda.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, there's also another myth that people always says that digital transformation is a quest that is only meant for the rich and the famous, right? Which means it's only large organizations who can kind of do with the money, with the backing and the time and the resources, are the only ones that can actually embark on this journey. What would be your advice for companies who are essentially smaller, and how would you advise some critical 1, 2, 3 steps in helping these people embrace digital transformation? Irene? Yeah.
Yeah, my take on this is it's very simple, Munira. Go back to the drawing board. Go back to what you have. If your data can tell you where you lack, that's where you concentrate. So you don't have to go full on a digital transformation for the whole company, or customer service, go and implement chat or whatever, right? You go and look at your
Mm,
data, study your data enough for you to know where the gaps are, and pick on those areas where you can implement one or two automation that will bring the business up. So I think a lot, going back to some of the panelists who have mentioned this, a lot of businesses don't look at their data, they don't look at what they have, and that's I- and while they don't look at what they have, what they try to do is they try to compete with the big players, and you'll not get anywhere doing that. Right? So
yeah.
in the space we are at, the pie is big enough for everyone. I would say go back
Mm,
and look at the gaps that you have, or implement something very simple that if you don't have the data now, how do you get the data? Right? You have to know your
mm,
business, you have to know your audience, and if you know that, I think that will be the winning uh, silver bullet for you, right, to take it from there.
all
Yep.
right. Okay.
Munira, I just
Thanks.
want to
Thanks.
add on
Yeah.
to that, Munira. Just a simple
Yeah.
example. We're talking about small businesses here, right? We
Right.
used to visit this family grocery store, and then we stopped going there and we moved to another one, a much
Mm,
larger one, because there was a huge variety of things that we could get from this guy. And we
right.
sort of shoved away that little small little player and went to this big guy, right? And guess
Mm,
what? During COVID, there was no personalization. We couldn't get them over, even over on WhatsApp. We could not even, communicate with them. He couldn't. He could not even. He didn't even want to deliver. And we went back to that small little shop, and he said, "Look, tell me what you want." It was just over WhatsApp. It's not expensive, right? But tell me what you want. I'll get it for you and have it delivered to you. Now, here's a lesson to be learned for the, it's no excuse when you're talking about whether it's a big player or small player. You don't have to deploy the most expensive technology, but deploy something that works for you. And in this case, in a real life example, it was just WhatsApp. And today you have WhatsApp businesses, WhatsApp for business. And these are simple tools that is able to provide personalization. And isn't that what CX is all about? It's about creating this personalization. So this guy now has got my loyalty, and post-COVID, I will not abandon him because he has simply provided for me during the past 6 months with this simple ability to change his business process, which was to go online, and talk to people online and provide this personalized service. So I think, it's no excuse whether you're a large organization or a small organization. There are so many tools available out there. Pick and choose what is most beneficial and, for you.
All right. Okay. Any advice or wisdom from Jinda?
For me, if I was a smaller organization, the first thing I would tell myself is don't ignore what is out there. I guess as smaller organization, we probably have a lot of things to focus on, and technology probably be the last thing that anyone want to embark, because the first thing we think about is cost. But my advice would be do not ignore what's out there. Ignorance here means that you potentially will lose business opportunity than being sustainable. So, echoing everyone what they say, understand what you want, look at your competition. If you don't have data, go back to your KPIs, understand what's lacking. Based on the KPI, you probably be able to identify the area that you want to improve. From there, you can move forward to actually look at technology. It's quite affordable. I think we should start looking at technology in a smaller scale for new business instead of looking at the larger scale. Taking example, Sony, when Sony started, what they actually did is they ignored the digital music. What happened to them? Look at Apple today, look at iTunes today. If Sony would have embarked on the basic fundamental of digital music, they probably will be dominating the industry. So that's a lesson to learn from every large or small organization. But I guess for me, for a start, let's not just be ignorant. There is smaller scale or affordable technology that probably will get you started in actually helping you out in terms of creating the great experience that you want from your user end.
Right. Thanks, Jinda. And Byron, over to you.
Thank you, Munira. I had to get a word in edgewise on this one. So a long, long time ago, during the time of the dinosaurs, the small companies didn't have enough money to buy CRM platforms, to buy enterprise resource planning platforms. But that was during the time of the dinosaurs. Today, a small company can access the same tech that a large company accesses because everything is being sold as a service. Most platforms are online, they're pay as you go, they're pay per license, subscription basis. There is no excuse. Realistically, implementing different digital initiatives is something that is really for the ambitious and the hungry, and now for the realist. So it's really something that shouldn't be relevant anymore, because a lot of the small companies now, they're all online. They're using project management tools like Asana. They're using all kinds of platforms that even the big companies are using. So I think the playing field has come to a point of leveling where it wouldn't anymore be fair to say that only the big boys can afford to have a digital agenda or digital transformation agenda. That's my 2 cents on this.
All right. Okay. Well, I've got just one more questions before we do the wrapped up. It's like, perhaps a lot of people equate, digital transformation as digital marketing. All right. So long as I've done my marketing of my products and services online through the social media, that means I have transformed the organization. So what's your take about this? Digital transformation equates to digital marketing.
Should I go first, or Raymond, you want to go?
Go ahead, Byron.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say no. Digital marketing does not equal to digital transformation, not even close.
But that there are a lot of digital marketing gurus out there, right? Who's kind of telling people, telling the world, telling the SMEs that this is the way to go, and if you get it, and if you're there, your revenue is going to double, triple, and so on and so forth. So I guess we just have to be telling the people that you just have to be very cautious about what is out there. So sorry, Byron, back to you.
No, I fully appreciate where you're coming from, Munira, and it's often true what they're saying, right? What these digital marketing experts are saying. It's true. Raymond rightly pointed out, the marketplace used to be in shopping malls, in pasar malams, in markets. It's now shifted completely online. My mother has learned to use Lazada. Life will never be the same again, for me and for her, in sometimes not so good ways. But the reality is, the products need to be where the buyers are. And it's true, the buyers have moved online. So it wouldn't be incorrect to say that going online is putting your product where the buyers are. I don't disagree with that. But I disagree that digital marketing equals to a digital transformation for the company. Digital transformation is much broader than that. Sure, taking your products from a brick and mortar store and putting it in, putting it online can be a part of your digital transformation agenda. But it can't be that switching platforms makes equals to digital transformation. That isn't the case. When we talk about digital transformation, and let me talk about it a bit from a CX practitioner's point of view, because of the company that I run, it starts with Jinda's area of work. When we're going out to look for people, right, we're not calling people on the phone and saying, hey, hi, I got your resume from wherever. We're not posting ads in newspapers anymore. We're not doing any of that. Today, we're interviewing people on digital interview platforms. We're having them go through assessments, psychometric assessments, all of the assessments that they need on a digital platform. We're doing even their personality testing on digital platforms virtually. That's digital transformation. That's taking recruitment away from a traditional talent acquisition model into one that's now digitally powered. And that is a digital transformation at that level for that particular function. But if we talk about digital transformation at an organization level, it's got to cover a lot more than just where you sell your products. It's everything, right? It's enabling a digital journey for everyone, your employees especially. So that's why I can't agree that digital marketing is a digital transformation agenda fulfilled. It can be part of it, sure, but definitely doesn't equal to that, is my thoughts.
Yeah. All right. Over to you, Raymond. You were about to say something earlier.
I was just going to touch on the fact, what I mentioned earlier, right? The word transformation really means it's a change from within the organization. So, digital marketing is just one aspect of it, as Byron said rightly, it's a subset, but a transformation means it's a total overhaul, it's a total change. It's not deploying technologies. It's not. It's about a mindset of wanting to improve customer experience. It's about wanting to provide a more personalized service. And that could come in various ways and forms. And for me, that is digital transformation. And things using tools like platforms, e-platforms, shopping, online platforms. These are all means of achieving the end goal. Yeah. So if I have a phone to sell and I was selling it physically and today I put it on an online platform, it's a tool, it's a mechanism. But I have chosen as an organization to change my culture that I was going to reach out to people through a digital means. So that transformation is it's a lot more deeper than purely digital marketing or going online and stuff like that.
All right. Thanks. And Irene, you have anything to share?
Yeah, I agree. I think digital marketing is a component of the whole perspective of digital transformation. The digital transformation, it challenges the complete business model, right? It reimagines how your product is offered, how your services are sold, associates experience includes processes. So it's the whole perspective of it from end to end. Whereas digital marketing comes as one component of that. Yes, it benefits and it does bring you more clientele. It opens up your perspective to be online more, sell more, be where people have not gone to. But it's part of the whole transformation process.
Right.
So the short answer is no. It's not. It's it's not the same. Yeah.
All right. And Jinder, your thoughts, please. You're mute, Jinder.
I guess for me it's the same.
Yeah.
It's a no. It's actually a part of the initiative you can take to ensure that you reach to the mass market. And when it comes to recruitment, if you realize now, digital talent has been something that we do quite constantly, but that does not defeat that we do not do things back end. Like every digital talent that we embark on, or every digital talent that we engage on, still get back to the ATS, where there is a form of technology that we are actually integrating. So it's the same. It's a no, but it's a nice to have thing. It's nice to have, but it definitely does not replace or take away the entire digitalization.
Right. Thanks, Jinder, and thank you everyone, panelists, for your great sharing. We've just got about 4 minutes to go, and I guess the key message that we are hearing in this panelist is really about Malaysia is on top in terms of managing this pandemic. We're hearing great success stories around how we were how agile we are, how resilient we are in terms of pivoting our business into adapting to the new normal, and riding on the infrastructure, ready infrastructure that Malaysia has, as the connectivity, as well as the availability of the resources and talents that is kind of out there, for us. So my final questions would be really wrapped up for the panelists. Is what are your final words in terms of, what can companies do now to kind of leverage on the opportunities? While we see that there's a lot of glooms and downs in the overall business, but we're seeing certainly some bright spark in as far as the GBS industry moving beyond the domestic markets itself. So what are your final words to the listeners in terms of what can we do to actually to ensure that we ride this tailwind of success? All right, everybody is waiting for everyone. So we're going to start off. We started with the letterings, right? So let's go back to Byron.
Sure, no problem, Munira.
Yeah,
we've got very little time, so I'll just say
yeah.
Two things. One is be open to possibilities. A lot of people have been left behind because they're so used and ingrained on doing things the old way, and that's stopped them from being able to move forward. So I would say be shameless in reimagining how your business can work, how it can function, and how it can do things. That's my parting thoughts to you. Be shameless about reimagining. Yeah.
Thanks, Byron. Thank you. And we have Jinder.
Coming from the talent point of view, I think my parting thoughts would be that, a company competitive advantage has to be their talent. It resides in people. I guess, now we have to look at cross-border talent as they are able to actually add value and, make that difference in ensuring that we are compatible competing with different countries.
All right. Thank you, Jinder. And we have Irene.
My parting thoughts on this is this whole digital transformation. Everyone, it's a buzz. Everybody's talking about it. It is actually a journey, right? If you haven't started it, it doesn't matter. It's always time to start. So at any point, be open. There's always room for changes. There's always room to scale back, scale up. It doesn't matter. For me, it's a journey, and it is a infinite journey. It's not going to end. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Irene. And finally, Mr. Raymond.
So I think I'll summarize it from perhaps from a national perspective, and in my capacity as president of the association and my discussions with a lot of the business leaders, I'm seeing that the smaller organizations and even the larger organizations in the contact center world, in the GBS world, are embracing this technology, are embracing this digital transformation well. So we are well ahead, in terms of moving the industry to the next level towards a digital GBS or digital contact center. We have started on that road, and I think is extremely positive news for the entire industry, and augurs well for the industry. In fact, and we are seeing that, as Byron mentioned earlier, we are seeing companies, organizations wanting to co-locate in Malaysia today. So, it's a testament to the work that we've been doing. I think it's a great thing that we're doing as an industry. And it is really, I think there's a huge rainbow at the end of the tunnel for all of us.
Right. Right. So with that, thank you very much, panelists, for your insights and your sharing. It has been a great conversation. We wish we have more time, but every good things will always come to an end. So I wish you all the best. Good luck. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Munira.
Thank you.
Thank you to the moderator as well as the speakers for such an energizing discussion, as well as to you, ladies and gentlemen, for your dedication and your time. And now we will be moving forward to our session today, and it will begin shortly. Click join session.